All right, Job Wanjohi right there is the head of policy research and advocacy at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and he joins us right now. Job, thank you very much for making time. This Manufacturing Priority Agenda 2024 has a target by 2030, at least the sector, manufacturing sector, to contribute close to 20% of the GDP. How close are we in this endeavor, considering we are already entering the second quarter of the year 2024?
Thank you, Noah. I think I would start from the quantums that we are able to move in terms of the value of output every year. The last 5 years, we have seen the quantum in terms of value addition moving from 500 million Kenya shillings to where we are today at 1 trillion Kenya shillings. That means we have increased the output of the manufacturing sector by 500 million Kenya shillings to get to 1 trillion. However, as that is increasing, there's some other sectors that are performing better than the manufacturing sector when you look at the GDP as a pie. So when now you start now calculating from percentage-wise, you see because telecommunication, agricultural sector, and many other sectors are performing better and are well supported than the manufacturing sector. Percentage-wise, it has been sliding. The last 5 years, we have seen it sliding from 9.3% to 7.2%. It's only last year, 2021, 2022, that we saw a reversal now, and now we are starting at 7.8%. Okay. So you can see from 9.3 now to 7.8%, that is sliding down. But in terms of the value added output, that one we have been improving. But now the question is, if we have been sliding as far as the percentage of the GDP contribution is concerned, yet we are the largest employer in the private sector, formal employment at 352,000 jobs from the public service, because that one comes first. In terms of revenue collection, we are collecting about 360 billion from the manufacturing sector, and a fifth. That means the other sectors are giving 4/5. Manufacturing only is giving a fifth. And that's huge contribution to the revenues. Okay. If you are talking about the value of the value output, again, I'll say it is increasing. Okay. So if you look at now, between now and 2030, I'll say that we are on our trajectory, the way that we have set it. But when we are compared with other sectors, percentage-wise, other sectors are performing better than the manufacturing sector.
So other sectors might be growing faster compared to the manufacturing sector. So the metrics have to be, detailed further for you to note if at all we are making progress. Yes. But looking at this MPA that you've released, 2024, you're focusing on 4 key areas. One of the key areas is the issue of global competitiveness. And you say, in the world that we live right now, a globalized world, that if we have conflict in Russia and Ukraine, somehow my food on my plate in Kenya, it gets more expensive. We have to tap into that and be competitive in that space. So far, how are we doing in this tenet?
As far as global competitiveness is concerned, I think I need to define what is competitiveness. Competitiveness is an ability to a company to have their factory output at a better pricing compared to other jurisdictions. If we have an output from manufacturing at 2 shillings, let's say probably is a sweet, but in Uganda it is a 3 shillings, the same commodity, you are defined as competitive because your goods are less expensive than in other jurisdictions. There's another angle in terms of quality of the goods that are coming out. Homogeneity, that is similar products, which in critical mass, they can be similar and can be sold across the world. Also, that drives competitiveness. So from that angle, and then when you start now analyzing from the value of export, the value of manufactured output level, and many other criteria that are used, globally, Kenya stands at 108th position in terms of global competitiveness. In Africa, South Africa comes first at around 49th position. And in East African region, Uganda comes second from Kenya at 123rd position. So within the region, we are better off, But within Africa, we are coming about 6th or 7th position, because even Eswatini, you find such a country is performing better than even the manufacturing sector in Kenya, and so on and so on.
Okay.
So when you do that regional competitiveness and a global competitiveness, I would say that something needs to be done for the manufacturing sector. And then in the manufacturing sector and manufacturing priority agenda 2024, we have enumerated areas that need to be looked into in terms of our national taxation structure. Is it punitive? Is it overstretching the taxpayers in a way that if you compare the taxation rate in Kenya for a certain commodity with the taxation rate in Uganda and Tanzania, you find that in Kenya our rate is a bit high. I'll give an example of something called craft paper or craft. This imposition of duty that has put on the craft that shows that in Kenya, when you're importing that as an industrial input, you import at total duty rate, import duty rate of that 9%. In Uganda is 1.5%. That means when you have the final output, for Uganda is going to be less, it's going to be more competitive than what is coming from Kenya. Okay. So we have been telling the government, why can't we harmonize the taxation rates between these countries? Because we are in what is called custom union. And in custom union, you have removed all the duties. Okay. So if in Kenya the input level is very costly, in Uganda the input level is not costly, Uganda will flood their goods into Kenya.
But in that regard, because most of this, especially with duties, input duties, they have been placed there. One of the reasons that the government gives is promotion of local industry. So for example, for craft paper, is there local production? Can it meet the local demand? And even just by the fact on matters global competitiveness, some of the things that are produced locally, as a manufacturer, if you source them from outside, you find they are still way cheaper compared to sourcing them locally. So how do you balance off that conundrum?
One thing is that, like now in the paper sector, we have what are called the converters, those who import the raw material, intermediate product, and they do the conversion to the final product. We have also those who are doing the milling from the pulp to the paper, now to the final product. In our daily conversation, these two players normally meet, and they are able to agree on what is locally available and what is not locally available. And I can confirm that we have had this discussion. We have type of craft that is locally available. We have another type of craft that is not locally available. Even right now, we are doing a verification exercise on some of the millers to establish whether they have those papers or whether they don't have those papers. So that we can, as a sector, agree on what to impose duty on and what not to impose duty on. So that if duty is imposed, we are not punishing those who cannot be able to get the paper locally. And if duty is imposed, then we are able to protect those who are able to make that paper. It's a very fair process that we undertake within our governance systems.
All right. And part of the recommendation, especially changing the taxation system, we saw even with the involvement with the tax bill that we had initially, the participation was quite active, fairly active from across the sectors, and coming over at the forefront of asking these guys, can you tweak this and that? As a sector, do you feel the government hears you? That is one. And are there changes? Are they making progress to adopt some of this recommendation?
Yes, we have some recommendations that we had put across, and they were adopted by the government. For instance, when you're talking about the claiming of the input VAT that is charged by Kenya Port Authority. Now it is manufacturers who claim that input VAT. It is not the third party or those who normally clear the goods on their behalf. So that's one area that we saw the government listening. Another one is what we call earning before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, whereby a 30% restriction was put by Finance Act 2022. We went and say, why can't you remove this restriction on local loans, interest on local loans, so that they are claimable 100%. The government listened on that. When we're talking about export services, because there are manufacturing centers here which are hub for the region, whereby you have one engineer here has to export the service to Uganda, to Tanzania, to Ethiopia, because those where the branches are. And we went and told the government, why are you charging 16% export services? Why can't you exempt? So the government listened. Okay. However, as they're listening on one side, there are other areas that they're not listening.
Which areas?
Like now, there's this discussion around the excess duty that is being imposed on raw materials and intermediate products, which are meant to make final goods for export. Okay. You find that we are unable to claim back that excess duty, and subsequently it makes our goods to be more expensive when we are re-exporting. Okay. That's one. Another one is like now export promotion and investment levy, which was put as 17.5% on some products, which some we have local capacity, but others totally don't have local capacity. So we are engaging the government and telling the government that why can't we revise this rate and see how can we have a rate that is progressive over time, rather than pegging it very high, punishing industries in a way that in a custom union, they are unable now to trade with the neighbors, so that once they put a lower rate, over time, then we can build the internal capacity. Okay, definitely. Yeah.
And as we finish up, Mr. Njohi, I know every year you guys come up with very nice recommendations. You engage government, you engage policymakers, which is very, very important. For this year, especially looking at the macros, the way the government has been handling issues that affect us, matters to do with debt, the way we are borrowing, the way we are taxing, because it has that ripple effect. I want you to play for a minute prophetic. How do you think the government might, what are the low-hanging fruits that they can pick on, not only to boost the sector, but also to make, reach their targets that they are aiming, matters to do with taxation and whatnot? How do they balance it off as we finish?
Okay, one is when you're talking about the cover ratio. Cover ratio, at the moment, the standard is 4.5 months cover ratio.
Yes.
That is the hard currency availability in the central bank. It has depressed. It has gone to about 3.8, 3.7. Tomorrow, we'll be hearing more from the Monetary Policy Committee. As we hear this, I'm looking at a situation whereby we can continue not losing more of our hard currency because of over-importation. And we have a reverse in terms of exportation. As an association, we have come up with something that is common good for the country, what we call the deep dives. And we have looked at if a manufacturer is here and is making the final product as a textile, how can they connect with the cotton producer down here? And so that one now benefits the farmers. Along the way, you find we'll have an aggregator, we'll have a ginnery, we'll have insurance company benefiting, we'll have the transporter benefiting. And I think that's one area that would come and change the macroeconomic environment of the country in terms of import substitution, in terms of correcting the position on as far as the forex or the exchange between Kenyan shilling and hard currencies is concerned, in terms of redemption of our debts, because sometimes we borrow to buy foods externally. In fact, our import bill in terms of food commodities stands at 500 billion Kenya shillings. That's another area that will be collected when we are able to integrate the manufacturing and agriculture sector. This is going to bring the healthiness within the economy in terms of job creation, investment, and many other areas. So 2024, we are happy that we are speaking that language with the government.
All right.
Government has what is called the cabinet dispatch that has 9 priority value chains with a budget of about 267 billion Kenya shillings. We are intervening together so that once we integrate, it's going to be benefit not only the manufacturing sector, but also the country at large.
All right, thank you very much. Job Njohi is the head of policy research and advocacy at Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and they have just released their manufacturing priority agenda 2024 for the country of Kenya. Make a point, go to their website, read this document because it's important for this nation. We'll take a short break. When you come back, we're talking about Airport Mtaani and matters innovation in our transport system. Stay tuned.